76. So they're oldies, but they work well and they're worth investing in. And when you pour money into something over and over and over, it kind of tends to stay the same, unlike our bodies. So let's see here. I think you want to share the first part of our... So we'll do a little recap, because COVID was in the middle of a few things, or actually a couple years ago when we should have really come and gave an update. So our family's changed quite a bit. There are some new things happening within our ministry, and with the vehicle you gave us quite a while ago, and all kinds of cool stuff. But I'll let Sue Ann share on some of the family update stuff.
So this evening we only brought one of our 4 children with us, and we actually sent him ahead to spy you out, right? Check you guys out. He has really, really thoroughly enjoyed working with the Mendels this fall for Harvest, gotten a lot of good experience and exposure to many different things, and so it's been really good for him. Our oldest, Kirsten, and our oldest son, Jacob, are both in Florida, and they are doing fabulously there. They used to work for the same company. Jacob went there to join Kirsten at her company, and the church that she's been at has just been a very foundational church for both of them in their spiritual walk and growth, and some very convicting time for both of them in discipleship and being mentored by a couple from that church. Jacob now is working for an electrician and has started some classes to become an apprentice for electrical work, and so he is just thoroughly enjoying working on several $million-dollar mansions and putting in, how many panels of just lights did he say the other? 9 6-foot panels of just lights. So huge houses, but he's really learning a lot and enjoying that. Keenan on the right, kneeling down there, is our third child, second son. He is in a lot of transition. He was in a program for surgical tech at school and working at a hospital in the OR, and decided that that's not what he wants to do, and so he transitioned to a Grand Canyon University for a business degree, is doing some online classes there, and is going to hopefully get into a company that does marketing and see what what the Lord has in store for him there. And Judah obviously just graduated. These are our 4 kids in this one. Judah just graduated high school and is wondering what the Lord wants him to do with the rest of his life. So hence the fall up here, working with harvest and farming and cattle and everything else that goes along with that. He has perhaps some potential for trade school, is an option for him in the future, in welding, some other trade school. So just be praying for him that the Lord would give some direction to him and open doors where he wants the doors to be open, and close other ones that are not a good direction for Judah. And so and then just one last thing I'll share about myself. If you would continue to pray. Yes, I did have a heart attack. I've been trying to follow up with cardiologists. Was supposed to be sent to a specialist in Tucson. That specialist is the last of, there were 9, and she's the last one, and so she's only taking critical cases, and I don't fit her parameters. So that's a good thing, but not a good thing, because I still need to see somebody. But the next step for me is a PET scan to figure out if I had a cardiac MRI, and it showed 2 things. One, a more severe possibility, and the PET scan is supposed to rule that out. So that's the next step, is to hopefully rule that one out. And if it's ruled out, great, but we still don't know why it happened, so we continue to investigate. And that's the end of my part. So I'll turn it back over to Tony.
All right. Yeah. So I thought I'd give an update on 5-2 Quebec. Do you guys remember this aircraft? All righty. It's the one we retrieved off of the mountainside. And in what year? 2014. So here's the airstrip that we're at, called Tierra Blanca. It's that airstrip has been closed for a couple of years, and we're hoping to get it open again. You can see there's pretty good water that can run over it, or down it, or across it during the rainy season. This picture is taken during the dry time. Otherwise, it will almost look like jungle. I mean, it's incredible when the rainy season comes, how it changes. But you can see the aircraft sitting on the side of the runway there. The landing gear is knocked out from underneath it, and it's sitting on its belly. The pilot just got behind the aircraft and landed at the very bottom of the airstrip, and actually hit just a little wall, and should have floated down a couple hundred more feet before he landed. So he landed just very soon. But the aircraft was worth investing in because it has no corrosion. It was only a couple thousand hours of airframe time on it. It's a 1960s or 76 or 75, and once we determined the wings were in good condition, and really the aft part of the fuselage, MMS, Missionary Maintenance Services in Coshocton, Ohio, put it into a big jig, and they replaced the firewall and the floor and all kinds of stuff in the bottom of it, and were able to get it back to airworthy condition. So it doesn't look very damaged, but you can see crinkles and stuff on the bottom of there. And I think I told the story how all this came out, or how we got out of the village and stuff. It was pretty cool how God just literally paved the road ahead of us and trailered it out. It took us 13 hours to get there, and part of our team had a little less than a half-hour flight to get there, and another 206. So it took us all day to get there, and then of course that much time, or a little more probably, to get back to Peak. But there's the excursion. It's still running fine. We call it Clifford because it's big and red, and we've worked it pretty hard through the years, and this was definitely, like I had said before, if there wasn't any other reason for that vehicle to be given to us other than, it was for that trip, because finding a four-wheel drive vehicle that could handle those roads and stuff. My hands literally got blisters because of how hard the steering wheel was being ripped out of my hands on going rough roads, and the turns it took multiple times to back up and get around stuff. And the last 2 miles, we couldn't pull the trailer that far, and if we had tried to, I think we would have lost the vehicle and the trailer, and maybe some of us too, because it was just steep and windy and very loose. So anyhow, what a blessing it continues to be for our family. So thank you. The aircraft actually made it to our house there in Tucson. But here it is, just before it left our hangar. We did quite a few upgrades to it. It's different than the rest of the fleet. The pilots have had to do a lot of checkouts in it to get used to the new instrumentation. And it is now the standard for the rest of the fleet. So we made a lot of work for ourselves by upgrading it to now have to do that to the rest of the fleet. But it's needed, very much needed. So Suzanne took a little video of it here, walking around it. We had it painted in southern Arizona by a gentleman who's painted a couple of other aircraft. So completely new panel there. We got rid of vacuum-driven instruments and put in some other engine instrumentation that gets rid of all the Cessna stuff. And I love it when we get rid of Cessna. That's the manufacturer of the aircraft. It was old steam gauges, like we call them. So there's much more accurate things in it now that really streamline and make things safer, and just more data, just more readily available. But those were the original seats that we had put in, because they're a mod as well. But the interior, all that kind of stuff, is what we also put in. It used to have blue carpet, not quite shag carpet and stuff, but now it's all fiberglass interior that's very utility. So it's a beautiful aircraft, and it's been flying now in Mexico for not quite a year. We had a pretty cool orientation, or kind of a blessing for it with a group. It doesn't seem to be wanting to move on. Is that the last slide? Okay. So we were very grateful. Lots of man hours, volunteers, and people have given to the upgrades in that aircraft. If you have been able to watch some of our fundraising efforts that we've been promoting, the other aircraft in our fleets are also getting the same instruments and engine monitoring system. So that means ripping out the old panel, kind of rewiring a lot of stuff, cleaning a lot of things up, and then putting the new panels in there. And so the other aircraft that we're doing that to right now is 901. It's a green and yellow one. With the interior and paints, the paint was done like 12 years ago or so it's still in good condition. But we're swapping out an engine for an overhauled engine. I did a heavy mod up in the front in the nose gear area that was best with the engine off. Sorry, I should have took some pictures. I have some good pictures that I like, but you guys would be like, well, that's kind of not very helpful. Pardon? Yes, it does. But that was already an annual ago, where one of our pilots will be. You'll see it there in the background. And then, so right now there's several hundred wires hanging out, and the panels are gone. We're replumbing for pitot and static systems, and for the new avionics and different things that we're putting in there. So it's coming along, and hopefully it will work when we get it all done. We try not to let the smoke out of the wires, because it's very hard to get the smoke back in the wires after you short something. Maybe you guys have had experience with that or as well, but anyhow, we try to avoid that. Let's see if I just slide again, will it go to the next video? No. Yeah, I was trying to remember what the intro of that one is. Right. Is there some sound with this one?
All right, guys, so we just showed up here at the UIM hangar. I don't know if you can see the sign up there, if it's a little too faded away. But let's go on inside, and we'll see what's going on here. So here you can see the airplane that I flew up from Mexico. We've got it tore apart right now. We're doing the inspection on it. Everything seems to be going well, and the airplane's looking good, getting it ready to send back to Mexico. A couple of guys are working on the plane. Also, got this other airplane. It's gone through a pretty extensive overhaul here lately. They've done a great job getting this plane ready and set, and hopefully this next year here in 2022, we're going to put this airplane into service, and it's going to be a great tool for us. How's it look, Suz?
It's gonna work.
Hey.
What's going on?
So we'll have one more video at the end that will show not just the Tucson hangar, because that's exciting for me, but that's not where you see the traditional dressed Ta'umata or quite a few other different villages that we fly into. But that's what our family gets to be a part of, and we're pretty built for it. I was trying to think about other, as far as your theme of missions goes. I mean, we are focused on Mexico for unreached people groups in remote places. That the aircraft, that tool that can assist in timely evacuations of people that are having, whether they've gotten shot or broken bones or some bad accident, hard births, all kinds of things. What's that? Yeah, it'll show some. Okay, there's two. That's when we can meet physical needs of people, that can open doors, whether there's a missionary in that area or not. Often there is, and it's because of the missionary those connections can be made. So there's still, I forget the number that we've said for a lot of years, like at least 260 different language groups throughout the mountains of Mexico. That a lot of them do not even know Spanish, so they're just pretty remote, and the gospel needs to be brought to them in different ways. And He's created us with different gifts, with different skills, and this is the way that He has allowed us to be part of His kingdom work, is being able to work on aircraft, a bit of schooling and Bible training and that kind of thing. So our challenge, even as we work in Tucson, is to continue to plug into the local body of Christ and continue to be light for Him. And that's always stretching. But as time goes on, I think Christ's return is getting closer and closer. The pressure, or it's a positive pressure, but just just knowing that the gospel of Christ needs to be presented to a lot more people. That's been a lot more heavy, at least on my heart, just driving across Tucson. The amount of vagabonds that are begging off the street corners, it's just really flourished a lot. We live pretty close to California, too close to California, and this is online now, isn't it? So anyhow, I guess I better be a little more careful what I say, but we continue to see our world change around us, and you guys do too. I'm sure in what is being pressured on us, for our values and things that don't line up with Christ. I mean, they're in direct opposition. So be praying for our mission and the doors to open yet for different ministries. There could be other partners, and sometimes people go like, I didn't know you guys were down here. And all of a sudden the door opens, and here we have been there for a long time, but the timing, that was God's timing to not be there or to be there at that moment. So continue to pray for us in that. So that was Jason, one of our pilots down in Tepic, Jason Farmer and his family. And then you saw Silas Cheek. He almost has his full support raised, he and his family. They have 3 children, I believe. So they have like 10% left, I believe, real close to that. So we'll be praying that they would get the rest of their support. But otherwise, Paul and I have been there 17, 18, or 18 and 19 years, something like that. And it's repetitive, but it's fun to do the upgrades and see our pilots continue to master what they're good at, and we all have areas that we need to be proficient in. So we continue to press forward. So yeah, if we could play the next video, please.
Yo vivo muy lejos de la ciudad. Mi hijo estaba muy enfermo, estuve orando y no podía qué hacerlo. Y de repente llegó la avioneta y lo llevaron y lo salvaron a mi hijo.
UIM Aviation flies for pastors, Bible teachers, missionaries,
bringing supplies, doctors, dentists,
and other Christian workers that are working in the central mountains of Mexico.
UIM Aviation flies for a number of native people groups.
To use the airplane as a tool to reach those who have never once heard about Jesus Christ.
Our ministry is important because lives depend on it. Eternal, spiritual lives, and sometimes physical lives as well.
Our ministry is vital to the people we serve in at least two different ways. One, in a physical sense, in which we are bringing doctors, supplies, and relief, for example, hurricane relief, into places that desperately need it. But we also bring in spiritual aid in the form of Bible translators and teachers and church planters that are addressing the eternal spiritual needs of the people that we serve.
Mexico has many, many areas that are unreached with the gospel. We fly over village after village after village in the mountains with no gospel witness whatsoever.
Mexico as a whole, it's really interesting. There's so much tradition in Mexico that a lot of people cling to the beliefs of their family that had for generations, but they don't even know why they're doing it, or they don't really practice religion. And it's an amazing time to reach out with the gospel because people are open to it. People see that there is power in the gospel, and it's something that's fresh and new. And in Mexico as a whole, it's really an amazing time to be able to go further, faster with the gospel.
As we've been involved with our UIM missionaries who have been teaching theological education by extension, it's been exciting to see them duplicate themselves out in the mountain villages by teaching the studies that they have just recently taken and go out using the airplane to these villages and teaching believers in those isolated places who don't necessarily have the opportunity to have Bible teaching and to have courses designed to help them understand the Bible.
The missionaries that are working in the villages are helping with their physical needs, and they are also helping them in areas like translating the Bible into their own heart language so that they can have the Bible in the language that speaks to them the best. And many of them can't read their own language, and so the missionaries are also teaching them how to read their language so that they can have the Bible in their hands and able to read it in a language that speaks to them the best.
One of the things that I really like about being a missionary pilot is being able to go out and be a part of saving lives, literally, in medical evacuations. When you see the joy, the tears, the happiness on the faces of the people, when they know that their loved one is going to get help quickly through the use of the airplane, it makes this job worth it.
My most recent medical evacuation was for a gentleman who had fallen in the canyon and broke both bones below the knee. We took him from the mountains to a hospital in town.
The thing of having the availability of a plane is being able to get to places in a safer way. So it's not just about getting there fast, but it's getting there safe. And some roads are pretty narrow, and in any activity that's going on those roads, you're not very sure of what your traveling will look like. So having a plane, you get to places in a safer way, very secure, and that means a lot to us also. The accessibility, being able to get up there and come back on the same day really helps to bring up teams and bring up people and be able to bring Bibles and food and anything we can. So the possibilities are now limitless.
I feel like UIM has done an incredible amount to advance the Lord's kingdom here on earth.
Every day I praise God for the privilege to be involved in the ministry that He has for us. But it's not just us down here doing it. You know, we have many supporters up in the States that are praying for us, that are donating to these things so that we can continue doing the ministry that the Lord has called us to.
Le agradecemos a todos los que están colaborando por esta avioneta y también los que están apoyando.
And that's what UIM Aviation does. We fly to change lives.
One of them is a Carbon Cub that doesn't belong to UIM, but we kind of help with a little bit of maintenance on it. It's a small clinic, small hospital clinic. They do surgeries there. They built that Quonset hangar and airstrip right down below it quite a few years ago. but we have a family living there that does flights in the Cub and as well as a 206 that we have based there. And sometimes there's two 206s or we have a 182 as well. It's a little bit smaller than a 206 that will be hangared there, depending on the workload. If there are medical teams that come out, that hospital or clinic will put on some cataract surgery clinics, and they'll bring up people from almost sea level, because that airstrip is almost 8,000 feet in elevation. So it's a pretty hard climb all the way up, and there they'll go down to the clinic, have the eye surgeries, and in a few days they'll leave, and I mean they can see again. So it's just incredible how that correlation is with their physical blindness, but their spiritual blindness too. So they're very intentional while they're in the waiting room and stuff to have videos that are playing in their language, presenting the gospel, and then a pastor that will be in there and just talking to them on one-on-one and see where their heart is and see what truth and what light God is spreading into their heart. And that is also happening through several medical and dental clinics. And if you guys love to pull teeth, whether it's on cows or horses or people, no, it's just people that we work with down there. But some of our pilots have gotten pretty involved, and I believe we just had a medical dental team. I'm sorry I don't have much information on that, but I know they're planning for another one in the spring. And if you're like, man, I want to go on that, see how I can help with food or setting up equipment, or if you like pulling teeth, whether they're in a human or a critter, maybe you could be a part of that. That could be something that could happen there. We have several things that we're fundraising for. I think we have one aircraft left yet for the upgrades of the panel, the instrumentation. I think there was a tug that I think another church is probably going to be providing funds for one of the bases, and there was another thing too, but I forget now. But several airstrips, we could use some people that if you wanted to come down, and unfortunately we can't get very heavy equipment to some of the airstrips to improve them. It's a lot of physical labor. It's pick, axe, and a shovel and wheelbarrows type of thing. Unless we had a big helicopter, we could airlift some small equipment in. That'd be our way, right? The farmer way to put diesel in something. But a lot of times, you're working alongside people and you build relationships, and that's where the rubber meets the road when it comes to a lot of spiritual kingdom building work. So if you're interested in doing that kind of thing, there's some more info on our website, but otherwise definitely talk to us, and I can get you in contact too with the right people. So any questions? Excuse me, any questions from anyone about what we do or don't do and that kind of thing?
How many aircraft are you responsible for?
There's about 5 right now that we work on within the mission. One of them, let's see, 3, 4, yeah. Another one is outside of our mission, kind of like that Carbon Cub. We help with some things on it, but another ministry owns it, and we fly it and do all the maintenance for the owner, who has a large Bible camp and ranch down in Mexico. So we treat that like one of our own. And then we help a gentleman who does engineering work for us, his annual on his 182 and different things. So really at least 7 aircraft that we're fairly involved in. And so every 100 hours of flight time, the aircraft comes back up to the Tucson base, and we do a 100-hour inspection, which is very similar to an annual inspection. It all comes apart. We look in everything, lubricate, inspect for cracks, corrosion, and chafing of wires and that kind of thing, and put it all back together after we repair stuff and change oil, do quite a few things to the engine, and send it back out the door for another. So we don't see it for another 100 hours then. So that's kind of the main thing.
How long does it take to get 100 hours?
Well, 60 minutes times, no. It depends. It depends which base that the aircraft gets rotated to and might spend the most time at. It depends how many emergencies come up, all kinds of things. Approximately, it can be anywhere from 4 to 6 months. Sometimes a little sooner, sometimes a little longer. So back when we first started with UIM, we were, because now we're a good average of at least 200 hours a year on each aircraft. It was almost 400 hours a year for each aircraft when we first started working down there. New Tribes has really changed, or Ethnos 360, they've changed their focus, not so much in the village, but more city ministries, and so they've pulled some of their missionaries out and have not sent new ones into the mountains. And that we were very busy with them for a lot of years. So. Alrighty, so we have one more video to share with you. Gives you an idea of the couple missionaries. I mean, there's two